Big Armagh welcome for Gavin Andrews. Also, absolute pleasure to welcome Conor Murray. Welcome on your first trip to City of Armagh. Also Andrew Trimble, well known to everybody. And last but not least, Rory Best. So a big Armagh welcome for everybody.
Are you going to start or will I start this?
We have a running debate about Conor's working his way up to being...
I've done a few intros, but this is way too big a group.
There's too many people looking at us here. So I'll just make a hames of it myself. Hello and welcome to the Ireland Rugby Social. Gavin Andrews, Conor Murray, and we're on the road. They've let us out, the shackles are off.
Do you want me to follow up on that?
Yeah,
no,
I mean, you're a joint host.
Well done, Gavin. That was fantastic. One of your best.
Yeah, we're previewing the Six Nations with two Irish greats. Not including Conor, of course. Well,
you can
one
if you want.
legend and Andrew Trimble. A little harsh. Oh, that's a bit much. Sorry.
I didn't like that, Gav.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I had them as well.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, Rory Best is here. Andrew Trimble's here. Let's start with Andrew, shall we, first? 70 caps.
Correct.
How many caps for Ulster?
229.
Almost Ulster's record cap holder.
Mm-hmm.
He played more times for Ulster than Rory Best did. How many times did you play for Ulster, Rory?
Just the big games.
217, I think it was. Yeah, 217, 218. Like if you want to combine them, like a sort of top level professional rugby games, I have more than them.
Well, yeah.
Because I have over 100 caps for Ireland.
We could talk.
Yeah. Same.
We
Yeah,
could.
the two of us,
Andrew,
50% of the stage have over 100 caps for Ireland.
We could talk, actually. Rory's very good with the numbers and actually came up with a very clever formula. So back in the day, Rory didn't like...
We all
Rory
came up,
did
we
not
all came
like-
up with a formula.
Rory came up with a
Andrew's
formula and we're all afraid of Rory, so we just went, yeah, no problem. Rory didn't like the lad that he was sitting beside, and I'll not tell you who it was. English Irish qualified, but I'll not tell you any more than that. Rory was sitting beside him for a season, and eventually he said, I've had enough of this. He introduced this new mechanism to gerrymander the changing room, where he came up with a formula where an international cap gives you 3 points, an Ulster cap gives you 1 point, and somehow it ended up him being top of the tree, and he sat on a throne effectively, and just surrounded by people he wanted to spend time with.
Yeah, it was a hierarchy.
Ultimate team
is
man,
what it
really,
was.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Well, the hierarchy, so people could strive to get to somewhere. I think it's quite a good idea. You know,
What a leader.
The young
What a
lad
leader.
coming in needs to go, I want to get to that seat. And there we go. You go, well, you don't just sit down there. You have to work your way through it. Loads of sweat, blood, sweat, tears. And if you get an international cap, it's obviously worth more.
He's more
Because it
humble
takes
than
away
he
from your
sounds.
Ulster.
But Conor has won more than you, though. Would that be correct?
Correct.
He
Correct
does.
and right. Yeah.
He does.
He's
But
also got 125 more than me, but that's...
So I would
I
sit
have
ahead
more
of you. In the
starts.
changing room, I would sit ahead of you.
There's more starts.
yeah, I have more starts. They
So
count.
when you're in
so
your-
they're actually worth two.
Always Rory
Lion
Best.
starts. Well done, whoever said that. Yeah.
Right, get
Brilliant.
out. Who said that?
Come up and present this programme. I didn't even think of that. Okay, let's start with why we think the Six Nations is so special. So many memories, I imagine, growing up. What was your first memory, Andrew, of being aware of the Six Nations?
First memory, I suppose, was back in the day. My dad brought me to games like a lot of people here, and kind of, you know, the rugby club bus gets packed full of people, and you go down, there's all this excitement, and then you kind of wonder what that excitement is all about, and then you get there and there's just such a buzz that kind of just whips you up. And you know, if you grow up in a rugby family, follow rugby, you know, you kind of just inherit that, don't you? And Six Nations is the epitome of that. Just because World Cups, you know, obviously Ireland weren't really competitive, you know, during the kind of 90s and early kind of noughties. Ireland started to get a bit more competitive during Six Nations, and you know, I kind of just always remember back in the day whenever I was kind of 10 to 15, when you're just getting exposed to that. Really, an Irish Six Nations performance was being competitive for 60 minutes and then getting ran out the gate, really, wasn't it? And but we had a good enough time in those 60 minutes to bring us back. So it's maybe like golf, you know, you just had a couple of good shots, you go, okay, this is me, I'm coming back. But yeah, it was enough to get me brainwashed, and ever since, you know, obviously the game in general, but Six Nations is very special, isn't it? Six Nations is the top of the pyramid for us, and all of the innovation and changing in European rugby and all of the stuff that needs to change. Rugby doesn't get everything right, but one thing they get right is Six Nations. There's so much tradition, there's so much rivalry, there's so much up for grabs every year. This year, all the predictions in the world, no one really gets it right. It's very, very unpredictable. I think that just, increases the level of competition and the excitement this time of year.
We'll find out tonight. We're going to document it all. We're going to get some lists at the end. Rory, your first memories?
Yeah, look, I think it's similar to Trimby. Only we went down as a family. God love my mum and dad. Loaded 3 boys in the back seat of the Volvo, I think it was then, and headed to Dublin, not on a motorway, but used to go through, I think there was 12 towns and villages you went through, because my grandfather used to get us to name them all. To be honest, at the very start, I used to love to go down to the old Lansdowne Road, but I used to love to stop in the Monaster Boys Moor on the way home. That was kind of that was how they got me, the youngest of the 3, who had to sit in the middle and have the 2 boys fighting either side of me. That was probably how they got me to go down mainly, but that was always the big thing. The family, it was going for years. It was actually Jodie and I, one of our first dates was down to watch those. Oh no, what a romantic! That's what you're thinking. And she should have known at that stage that this isn't a good thing. They were going down to watch Ireland play Scotland. The time that you remember, that was it O'Gara, John Hayes, Easterby, Shane Horgan, and Stringer, was it? All made their debut. That was that game.
That's a famous picture.
That's what I remember it for.
Galway had them under his arms.
Yeah. And so there's been big moments along the way, and like Trimby said, the history of the thing is just incredible. And now I think with Italy getting stronger, there was for a long period of time there you kind of went, would it be better going back to the 5 nations? But actually now with Italy really getting stronger, it's just going to add more and more to the history of the competition, which is, it's something you grow up watching, and everyone wants to play. And we have this mini tour fundraiser now. All of those will watch. They'll watch they'll watch parts of the game over the next number of weeks, and they'll go, someday I'd love to play on that. And that's what's so special about it.
Were you up the road from Limerick, Conor?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were just similar to the boys with the parents loading us up in the cars, and the motorway wasn't there, so it took you an age to get up the road, and going to the old Lansdowne Road and just feeling the history, the tradition, and when that comes around and you get the chance to play in it, you really value playing in the Six Nations, because like Trimby said, like a lot of rugby is up in the air at the minute, but the Six Nations is like locked in, how much it means to people. And getting the schoolboy tickets, going to the terrace end behind the goals, and getting a feel for it, getting brainwashed by the game, and then taking 10 hours to come home because all the parents wanted to stop off in all those towns because there's no motorway, and do that over the course of Six Nations. The buzz and the excitement around it just got me.
And the stadium, the old Lansdowne Road as well, just added to it, didn't it? For our experience, anyway. Six Nations, yes, but just for our experience as kids, it just felt so grand. And so, eventually, you wouldn't have actually been a little bit too young, but having played there a couple of times, then you kind of think, oh, it'd be nice to have, a brand spanking new stadium here would be amazing. But then after a few years, you sort of think, well, it was a pretty cool venue to play rugby. And then remember the 2 old houses? They look like houses on the corners. Yeah. I always imagine whenever they knocked it down, you would move into one with your family, and Sexton would move into the other one with his family.
The hierarchy, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But even the dart line underneath it was, because we obviously played in it a few times, and when the dart used to go by, it was right behind the changing room. So the whole changing room, you were just about to go out, and the whole changing room shaking. Kind of like, oh, there's the dart, brilliant.
Do you remember a conversation we had about the dart before one of the games back in the early days? I was always very nervous on game day, and there was a delay for some reason, and we were out in the pitch waiting for a couple of minutes before kickoff, and I turned to him. I was like, well, what's the hold up here? And he goes, I think there's a lamb on the tracks. A dead poker face.
You bought it.
Yeah. There wasn't at the end of it. It sort of got, because he's a dopey sheep as well. So the reference to the lamb was because he's a
there you
dopey
go.
sheep. If you look at him, he's got sort of sheep teeth, and he's clearly incredibly stupid. So it just
That's why I'm delighted.
Yeah, you're hiding behind the mic.
Delighted you give me such a big microphone. Yeah. I hadn't actually been christened the Dopey Sheep at that stage. That was
did you not?
That was pre Dopey Sheep.
That must have been the lead up to it. Okay, makes sense.
We will get on to this year's tournament at some point, but I could delve in this area all night. Let's go with your best memory as a player, all of you, and maybe best memory off the pitch as well before we start thinking about the rugby of this age.
On the pitch, for me, it was 2014. I felt like I had been in
Player of the tournament? Or
guilty.
Irish player of the year, maybe?
Yeah, you did.
No, you're right. Sorry, I wasn't actually guilty of that. I wasn't player of the
No,
tournament.
you weren't.
You sucked
Yeah,
me
you
in
lied,
there,
man,
guys.
just
You
lied.
sucked me in.
Every time.
But if you're giving it out, you're going to take it anyway.
yeah, exactly.
No one
Guilty,
remembers
guilty,
then anyway.
yeah.
So
Yes, because for me, I'd kind of been banging the door a little bit. I'd been in and around a lot of Six Nations squads, and we hadn't really delivered, and I hadn't really delivered. And 2014, just with Schmidt, it just felt like it all came together for the team, and it felt like I felt like I was a passenger in a lot of teams, just kind of, not making maybe that many mistakes, or just, hanging on to the coattails of a big team performance. It felt like I was a part of it, contributing in a meaningful way. So 2014 and Paris as well, brilliant memories of Paris. And, both memories could be, to be fair, Paris that night and Paris that day for the game. On and off the pitch might coincide in one weekend. Great party, great crack. Jimmy Nesbitt happened to be there. It just feels like if everybody's getting drunk, Jimmy
He's
Nesbitt's
always
there.
yeah.
Funny, I interviewed Jimmy Nesbitt at a World Cup back in the day. Your dad was there as well. I think he was
Oh,
chatting.
no.
Yeah.
Was he drunk as well?
Yeah, he was. Well, I'm not as drunk as Jimmy
Probably.
Nesbitt, but
It's a high bar.
yeah, well,
We'll cut that out.
2011, yeah, New Zealand, that was good crack. Go on, Rory. You've quite a few.
probably, I think the Grand Slam in Twickenham in 2018. I think to have sort of gone what Irish rugby had went so long with very few, and then to win sort of those Grand Slams in 09 and then in 18 was incredibly special. But to captain one of those and to do it in Twickenham, and it's sort of the most pleasing thing about that tournament was that we'd started off and we'd got that win in Paris when actually we probably didn't play that well, and Johnny hit that unbelievable drop goal after whatever, it was 20 something phases. But then as a captain in the team, you're sort of looking at the leaders and you're going, right, well, okay, we're under a bit of pressure because we're expected to win this tournament. We've got through the first bit. So it's how that squad got better and better as we went through, and to go into St. Patrick's Day in the snow. I always tell the story that my daughter's cried twice at Twickenham, once because of the cold in 2018, and then I thought it was because we got thumped in the World Cup warm-up in 19, but she says it's because of the heat. But to go through, she was hiding under the seats at that point, but to go through the tournament, and then with all of the pressure of coming off the back of Cheltenham, so everyone was coming down the road half pissed into Twickenham expecting us to win, because England were sort of struggling. But for anyone that's ever been to watch an Ireland-England game at Twickenham, or if you've played in it, it is an incredibly tough place to win, no matter what stage England are at in their evolution. To go and for that to be our best performance of the tournament, to win a Grand Slam there, to be the one to step up as at last it is now, to lift that trophy was incredible. And yeah, look, the night out afterwards was pretty good.
Nights.
Nights, yeah, well, yeah, as per, yeah, we did a couple, but it was brilliant. It's a brilliant place to go and lift the trophy. And look, they were really good about it. Everyone sort of puts the English as going, all we want to do is beat the English. But certainly in my time in playing, whenever we beat them, they all waited on the pitch. They come into our change rooms afterwards to congratulate us. And, in the post-match function, they were buying drinks, and they realised how good a team we were on that day, and they appreciated how well we'd played. So, it was a good time, that 2018.
That year in particular, and that game was unique in so many ways. When we talked earlier on about the competitiveness and the intensity and the rivalry in Six Nations, but that one, it just looked like we won that game at a canter. Because we were so good, we were so efficient, we were so our plays just worked perfectly. It was peak Schmidt, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it definitely was. It was kind of one of those where I remember, I think it was the first player, one of the first plays we called in their half, and we'd worked on it all week. It was a 4-man line out, and we'd put Furlong out the back, and he was to dummy to play it to Johnny on the wraparound and then slip it to Bundy. Or to, as a Bundy wasn't there, he
Bundy
gave
went
the
through,
seat.
and Johnny went
And
around
then-
the back, yeah.
yeah.
Because
And
Joe's genius on that one was about Owen Farrell. Remember,
Yeah.
Johnny passed it first, and then we knew, or Joe knew that Faz would want to like hit Johnny, so he chased him around the back and created a hole for Bundy to go
Yeah.
through. So it was peak Joe.
Yeah, and
wasn't
we'd
it?
ran that all week, and Furlong had made a bollocks of it all week.
Yeah.
Like and then when it called it, I remember being in the huddle, and Furlong goes, it's like one of those movies, you know, in the American football, and the big fat guy goes, whoa, is that the one where I passed the ball? And then he goes, is that the one where I passed the ball? And Johnny goes, yeah. And he goes, no. And he goes, no, don't worry, trust your skill.
He wanted to cancel it.
And he wanted to cancel it. I
my
think he just wanted to go to a mall and sort of thump it up
Put the
so
head
he
down.
could peel off the back of it and throw a few people around and make himself look good. And sure enough, line out went to him, and exactly as we thought it would be. And Bundy went through,
CJ,
past the CJ. Yeah.
Yeah. And it did all come together that day, because remember because of the cold, they changed the white lines to blue lines, didn't they? And England wanted like a longer dead ball area.
Yeah.
And we didn't. I think Joe didn't, and
Joe
England
didn't, because they did.
because they did. Yeah,
No
yeah,
other
which would be
reason.
very unlike Joe. So they extended him anyway, and then this actually has nothing to do with Joe, this last try, because it was near half time, if you remember, and we had a line out, and a message came down to kick it off, like get to half time, we've a decent lead. And I think you probably said, like, let's just play and see what happens. And then Jacob ended up going down the blind side, chipping it over the top, and he scored in between the area where the old line was and the new blue line was. So it was a bit of a
Hit off his
to
shin
Joe,
3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the way.
beautifully controlled. But like Jacob, everything he touched that season was gold.
2018, you always come back to. Was that the special one for you as well? Yeah.
Yeah, for what Rory spoke about in terms of the way we played and obviously what happened in Twickenham, but you asked about like the best off the pitch. That year, I've spoke to you about it before, that off the pitch for that whole campaign was incredible. It was the most social group we had, I think, in an Irish squad. And usually like midweek, you know, the Leinster lads will go home because they're quite local, and there'd be a gang of us kind of chilling around Carton House, and more often than not, that campaign we were kind of, would we go for a few sneaky ones? And we did a couple of times, and we had some unbelievable nights where none of the coaches knew about it. But for some reason, the tradition is true. Like we were so close that year when we were the tightest Irish group I've been a part of. So off the pitch would have been that year, and then Chicago. I don't think
The captain endorsed those nights out, did it?
No, he had to be dragged out. Yeah, he was like he needed his 8 hours beauty sleep, and
The leadership is
yeah.
about supervising as well.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't let them go too loose, so somebody needed to be there. Like
He
they're
had
only
to
they're
stay
young
out the
men.
latest, to make sure everyone went home safe, didn't you?
Yep.
Is that midweek then? You're just boozing at Carton
There was
House?
one or two, kind of.
Andrew, not all the time.
Not all, I said
Make it
seldom,
sound
but
like
just
it's all the
they
time.
were. I have a video on my phone of Peter O'Mahony with an espresso martini in his mouth, kind of balancing it in a nightclub on a Monday night. So we're retired now. We're allowed to say this, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were a well-behaved Trimby, weren't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I to be fair, that season I wasn't getting anywhere near it. I was, I watched Jacob. You mentioned Jacob there. I watched Jacob in pre-season the summer before, and Tommy and I looked at each other and we were like, one of us is retiring very soon. It turned out both of us were retiring. That's how good Jacob was. So yeah, I wasn't that. I mean, that feels like a throwback to the old amateur days, but that was after my time. Things obviously became, I don't know, less professional maybe from a drinking perspective. But who cares?
Balance. We had good
Balance, yeah.
Well, let's bring it forward. We could talk about nights out all night, but let's bring it forward to now. How are we
There's
feeling?
a groan from the crowd.
I know.
there.
Do we want
Way
to
more
talk about
nights
now,
out
or do we
stories.
want to talk
Way
more? Shall we do a vote? Do we want to talk about nights out or this Six Nations? Hands up for nights out. This Six
good.
Nations. Yeah, well, half and half. Let's move on to the Six Nations. How are we feeling? Confident? Not confident?
Not that confident.
Trimble's wincing.
Yeah.
Straight to
I
Trimble.
think we all,
Yeah,
You
maybe
start the bad news out of
you
the
can
way
put a
first.
bit of balance in this afterwards.
No,
but
I am now. I'm on
He's
your
close
side now.
enough to still.
Yeah, it's the Farrell factor is the
worried.
bit that kind of balances it up. On paper, I think just with everything that's happened with the scrum in November, and it just feels like the scrum is more important than ever. Or maybe it's only more important whenever you're playing South Africa. But I would argue if it's that important playing South Africa, it's pretty important playing France as well. And just that warning shot, and then just what's happened with the kind of loose head crisis, if you call it crisis, and just difficulties there. One or two other injuries. A handful of lads you'd want to be in better form generally, and then no kind of stability or consistency at 10 as well. Even there's just so many guys all playing okay at best, and it feels like if there were loads of young lads banging on the door, then you go, okay, a spark of youth and enthusiasm, something that can ignite this team. But there's only a couple of those guys, and they're not really. It just feels like all of that on paper says I don't think we can go to Paris and be really excited or really kind of cock a hoop. But Farrell just finds a way to get something out of these guys. He's done it less recently, but he's definitely got enough credit in the bank where you can say rationally it doesn't quite make sense that we're going to go Marseille. Think of Marseille a couple of years ago. Going to Marseille, and we thought there'd be a hangover after the World Cup, but they turned up and they performed unbelievably well. It was a huge performance. And there's a part of me, most of me thinks rationally this doesn't look like we're going to turn up, but there's a part of me thinks, well, Farrell's done this in the past. Who knows what he can dig out of these guys?
Mainly negative then. What do you think, Rory?
I think it's going to be tough. I think there's probably who he picks at 10, who he picks in the back three is probably going to be the big ones for him. I think one of the biggest issues they have is just there's always been this sort of consistency with his selection. So Andy Farrell is very, very loyal to the people that he picks, but there's also been a consistency in the way they play. Leinster, over the last number of years until really this year, have played very, very similar to the way Ireland played. Hence the reason that Goodman come in to be the Irish attack coach, just because they were so similar. So you're really lifting these same players by and large from one system or one team into the other, similar system. The biggest issue they're going to have is that Leinster now this season, more so this season probably than last season, are playing very, very differently. They kick the ball way more, like even against Ulster and at the Aviva, that you would have never seen Leinster teams get towards or into the opposition 22 and put the ball up, and they did that a few times. So Ireland aren't going to do that. Andy is definitely not going to do that. He will kick a lot because away from home you'll need to, but it's how quickly can they get these players. And you're going to probably sit there and think this is mad. They're professional rugby players, they're good, they're the international class, they should snap back in. But when you get in the pressure of the Stade de France, it'll be 9 o'clock local time there, and France are coming at you, you will go into your sort of the automatic response, which would be what you've been trained every day at your club. And the fact that they're so separate, it's going to take a little bit of time to get them back into that groove of the slightly different running line, staying slightly tucked in bits and pieces, and when to come onto the ball. How quickly they can use their time in Portugal to get that, with it being France and Paris first up, just makes it so difficult. Even if it had been in Dublin, there's the fear fact when you play France, it'll get you a performance. But if you're at home, you can lift yourself and you have the comfort of being at home. Being in Paris is going to make it very, very tricky, and they're going to have to find a way to gel and be really, really cohesive very quickly, because there's going to be some huge pressure moments in this game, and what that automatic response from the players is will depend on whether they win or lose.
Conor, you're still pretty tight. The lads, how are they feeling?
Yeah, I'm worried now as well, especially with the front row issues and the loose head situation and the way it ties into the story of the South African game during November. I'm definitely more worried now than I was a few weeks ago. But what Trimby said about Andy being potentially the difference, you talked about the Marseille game in 24, wasn't it? 24. And before we went into that game, we were questioned about form and not clicking. So the last game we had played was the quarterfinal against New Zealand, and we had the most detailed review of a game I've had in my career. And we looked at that game, New Zealand game, and Andy just pointed out like black and white, like so many situations where we could have been better, we could have scored, like that last 20 minutes against New Zealand when we were struggling and trying to find a try. like Rory said again about going into your shell when you're under pressure in big stadiums and big atmospheres. Andy showed clips of us, if we were a little bit more brave or believed in ourselves and stuck to the plan that Andy's going to be trying to instill in them. So that's where my confidence comes from in this group, is that just because November didn't go according to plan, from an Irish perspective and a fan's perspective, Andy will have gone through all of those games and shown the lads this week in Portugal, what's missing. And I think the other worry is that there's so many new players in the group now that weren't there. That's the other concern. But I do feel, with Andy there, he could surprise anyone. But France away in the first game is a huge ask. And then if it goes well, if they get a performance, and then all of a sudden we're speaking in a different language and being really, really hopeful. But ultimate test.
So how vital then is this Portugal camp?
Yeah, look, I think it's huge, and I think the reason they go to Portugal is just like, if you look at the underfoot conditions here, you need to get away where you can do loads of walkthroughs, you can train on a good surface, but as much as anything, you can get the guys that are like, you can get them together off the pitch, because that'll probably be in those big moments on Thursday night. It'll be how much somebody's willing to get off the ground a split second quicker, how much they're willing to actually listen to somebody coming into a defensive line and move before they get there. All of these little bits that they'll be working on off the pitch are as important as anything. But there is no doubt when you go away from home in your first game this training week, and I think it goes right back to probably one of the first things that we did, even in that 18 one, you sort of looked at the first game, which ironically was away to France then as well, and you said that one of the reasons that Ireland don't succeed, because we'd gone a few years with a good team and we'd lost the first game of the Six Nations, then you're under pressure the whole way. And when we looked at it, we realised it was because we'd used this sort of fallow week this week as sort of a week to get ourselves recovered, rest, mentally, physically, and then we go, right, from next Saturday, we'll then take a run into the game. We'll take 7 days. And we sort of went, we're wasting a week. We need to have this mentality that we could play the game against France next Saturday. And that's what they'll go into Portugal do. They'll get loads of prep done so that next week, with it being a very short week, within a Thursday game, they can just focus on being as physical as they can be, because ultimately when you play French teams and the French national team, all they want to know is, are you going to be in this fight? Can we bully you? And then if they can't, then they start to get a wee bit. They fight with each other then. So this is what this week they have to get all of the little bits and pieces of detail nailed down, and then just think next week, without using expletives, it's about knocking lumps into them next Thursday night, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I wonder though. There was a lot of chat before the New Zealand game at the start of November about how they went out there a week early. They really got to grips. They had a brilliant training week. Everything was all about that, pumping up their tires. And I wonder if it was like the anticipation of, okay, well, we're undercooked, but that's going to be balanced out with we're incredibly well prepared. So it's hard to know like what to buy into, all the spin and all the narrative and all the chat out there. But hopefully that's the case. But as you say, Murray, with a few new faces in there, it's even more difficult, and there's even a kind of steeper mountain to climb in terms of detail and getting across it. But it does. That week is going to be really important.
I think that week is really important, especially with new guys in there now, that the likes of Furlong and these experienced boys will drag these new guys along and kind of leave them under no doubt as to what's required, to be ready to play. Because you always said it, Pete always said it, Johnny always said it, that we need to be able to play. We used to break up on a Tuesday evening. We'd be ready on a Tuesday, to play the game. All your calls are in your head. You're ready to go. So, those new boys that come in will need to be like sponges and just take in all this information and be ready to perform. But it's an unknown, isn't it? Because what young lads are they going to be able to do that? Are they going to feel the pressure? Or you know what I mean? So it's something we can't really answer at the minute.
It is going into that environment at the start when you're not used to it. Even whenever Schmidt came in at the start, it felt like, oh my, the level of intensity in training and what's expected of you, and it's just you're going into this different world you didn't even know existed. And then after a week or two you start to get up to speed, and then you start behaving at that level. But it's a shock factor. Lads like Michael Millen, who probably won't be used to it, he's going to have to get used to it incredibly quickly. I'm trying to think if there's any other like a lot of other guys that maybe mightn't get that much game time, but they're in the setup. They've been exposed to that environment a lot. But he's probably one example of someone who would have very little exposure to it.
Yeah, I think that's it. That there's going to be a lot that he's going to want to look at off the pitch, how they gel and how they bond in around the team, because he's
midweek drinking. Surely,
It was going to come up again, wasn't it? Yeah.
It is. Listen, it was part of a Grand Slam. Maybe you should have drank a bit more. You'd have won one.
I've never had that feedback before.
But a lot of these guys that are there are more probably to be as much then to be seen. Going to World Cup, is this somebody that we can bring into the squad for a World Cup, or are they going to be a bit of a hassle? You really want people that train. Like a great example was the 2011 World Cup that Declan Kidney brought Fergus McFadden over Luke Fitzgerald, because he knew that Ferg, whether he's picked or not picked, will turn up and he'll train and he'll get absolutely everything. So there'll be a bit of looking at that, but Mikey Millen's a good one, because I think he's going to start on Thursday, whereas the like of Adogbo and these sort of guys that may start in an Italy or somebody maybe at home. But do I see them playing him on Thursday? Probably not. So the like of him is going to have to get up to speed very, very quickly. And I think Andy will pick a lot of his experienced players. But I think you said at the start that the worry is that a lot of those kind of the key players like James Lowe really have been, like their form has been patchy at best. But he's such an important player for Ireland. We talked about it earlier. He's so important. But actually, if you're picking the team, you're putting somebody in that left wing. Depending on what you do at fullback, you would be picking Jacob ahead of him on form for definite. But Andy knows what he can do, and we were sort of talking about him earlier, weren't we?
Yeah, Andy will say Lowy, who will we know him pretty well. Like he'll know himself. He hasn't played as well as he can, or you know what I mean. So he'll know himself. He's not performing up to scratch at the minute. But what he can produce is, when he's on form, he's wearing that 11 jersey all day for me. And I know Jacob is flying it at the minute, but what Andy will do to Lowy, and I've seen him do it, is put him under huge pressure. He knows how to deal with individuals. Some individuals need a little bit of a arm around his shoulder, and everything's going to be okay. But with Lowy, I've seen Andy do it. He'll be ultra critical of him in the meeting room, and he'll kind of, he knows that's what's going to get the best out of him. So that's the magic of Andy. If he's a player, say we're just using Lowy as an example now, coming into camp a little bit undercooked or not in great form, Andy that's the magic of him. He has the kind of the power to bring that out of him in a big game. And in fairness to Lowy, the bigger the game, the bigger he plays. So there's a little bit of hope that can happen in a few positions across the team.
Yeah, we'll look at the selection details in a minute, but I don't know what you guys think, but it feels like a massive game for rugby generally, with the whole world watching on a Thursday night. It was such an autumn with bad publicity, the 132 minutes. Do you think rugby needs a good Six Nations and a bit of feel good, plenty of tries and a good advert almost?
Yeah, maybe I suppose it's an unusual one. Obviously Thursday night rugby in Paris. The Winter Olympics, I suppose, isn't followed by much of us, so it seems a bit of an unusual one from our perspective. But yeah, rugby in general, November, got a lot of kind of people sighing and kind of criticising. I mean, there's a lot of recency bias there. From an Irish perspective, we get all of the Irish narrative, and the Irish narrative was after the South Africa game. That's how it finished. So then it feels like, the whole of November was nonsense and it was crap rugby, and but really it was because we had 4 yellow cards and 1 red card in a South Africa game. We had about 100 scrums, and just the game just felt like just something completely unusual. So I think that maybe skewed the impression of all of November. I'm not saying the rest of November was brilliant, but the Australia game, Ireland played pretty well, for example. And then European rugby's getting a bit of a hard time as well, just with the format, and probably rightly so. But I think we saw in rounds 3 and 4, we saw a lot of really good rugby. When you think of Leinster, La Rochelle and Dublin, that was an absolute worldie of a game. Some great rugby all round, rounds 3 and 4. So not say that corrects all of the problems within rugby, but we do lean heavily on Six Nations. We mentioned this at the start, all of the difficulties not the rule change, but the high ball. We got the perfect man to talk to here. I mean, if it's a box kick you want to discuss,
bring me back in.
this is Mr. Box Kick, Mr. Box Kick Northern Ireland.
Other things as well. I did other things as well. Please.
A standing leg. You need to be very careful. Connor used
Here we go.
cry about a standing leg. Oh, my standing leg, ref. They can't jump at my standing leg. He'd come to me and
it was
go,
our asset
they're
as a
jumping at my
team.
standing leg. I'm going, Connor, please do us a favour, will you?
I carried
Just
you
kick the thing.
you to many titles with that standing leg, my friend.
All other scrum halves had a standing leg as well, but you were the first person I ever heard.
This was worth a bit more than most.
His was just long. They are going to protect scrum halves this Six
They need
Nations.
to, yeah. It's
Didn't
ridiculous.
they already start protecting them? You're not
Yeah.
allowed. You're literally not allowed
Not
to
allowed
touch
to
them.
touch them, yeah.
No.
It was a dream to play. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying?
You're slagging me about kicking all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of there's a kind of narrative right there that the kick, the kicking, the escorting, or the ushering, or whatever it is, kind of blocking chasers. How's that's impacted the game? I don't think it has. Actually, I actually think from an Irish perspective, our only problem is that we're not that good scrummagers compared to South Africa, or maybe compared to back in the day, maybe when we had more. But it felt like we got it was an exhibition in scrummaging, and we were completely dominated. And then we come out and we try and find, right, that's because the South African lads have changed the rules in the game. Like it's I thought it was interesting to hear that kind of feedback, but I don't think rugby is in a crisis. I think rugby is, especially Six Nations, is our time to shine. Thursday night in Paris, I've no doubt that this will deliver. It can't not deliver. There's so much anticipation, so much buzz around Six Nations. It's such an exciting time of year, and I think that'll be reflected on the pitch. Is rugby in crisis, Roy?
No, I agree with Trimby, which doesn't happen very often, but especially around the scrum. Look, I do think he's right. At the end of the day, we looked at that South Africa game and thought, this is dreadful, and everyone then started to go, how do we get a game where we don't have a scrum? And you're going, like, from front row forward, you're going, like, why would you want that? That's rugby league, a game without a scrum. And you kind of go, our big selling point is that no matter what size or shape or athletic ability that you have, that there's a position for you in the pitch. And look, South Africa have just, as teams do along the way, the New Zealand team of that sort of 2011 to 2015 pushed the boundaries in what they expected each member of their team to be able to do in terms of the ball handling, their athletic ability, the way they ran lines. South Africa have now just pushed the boundary to go, well, actually, if you want to compete with us, you've got to be able to scrum. And probably teams have gotten away with being not technically good enough in there for so long, and South Africa went, well, if you're not technically good enough, we are going to smash you, and you are not going to win the game if you can't keep up with us. So you now have to go back and you go, we can't just look at the scrum as a lean in anymore and we sort of feed the ball and off we go. We've actually got to be able to do this, and like that'll focus you. Like that'll really, I know it's something that David Humphreys is looking at to go, well, how do we make sure that the kids leaving school or leaving the club under 18s, then going into under 20s and beyond, how do we make sure that they're actually not just big, strong athletes, that they actually technically know how to do a skill, because it's a technical skill. And that's what caught Ireland out a little bit. It's not the individuals within it, it's actually technically how they came together. A couple of the individuals had some technical flaws that they've got away with, and South Africa exposed them. So now what you've got to do, like anyone that pushes a boundary one way or the other, you've got to go away, rethink and go, how do we make sure we're better at that? And from an Irish point of view, it's going to be a brilliant test on Thursday night, because France, the one big thing with France compared to South Africa is South Africa will just go after it every single time. France will be a little bit more, if you can focus really hard for the first 2 or 3 scrums and they feel they can't get anywhere, they can get a bit lazy and they'll kind of go, you know what, I'm happy with parity here, and then I'll move around the pitch a little bit more. So the scrums as it goes on will potentially become a little bit more, right, get it in and get the ball away. But if Ireland lose the momentum early on, the French will smell blood and they will just go after it, as like the South Africans did. But I don't think there's a huge, massive problem with Irish scrum. I think it was exposed by South Africa. But we'll see on Thursday night. I just think that, like Trimby said, the game, is always going to be in a state of people asking questions. So whether it's head knocks, whether it's the tackling in the air when they changed the rule with Jared Payne's incident at Ulster against Saracens, whether it's the scrum, whether it's the mauling, what it is, there's always going to be something that is going to be in the spotlight, and people go, "Oh, is the game in crisis?" The game has to constantly evolve, and I think that's what they'll do.
The game, I think the game will inevitably kind of swing back and forth and evolve, and every country, every team will have their unique DNA. This is what makes us tick. Based on our profile of player, this is what we're good at. This is what we're good at, and something like what happened in November could be a moment where you go, you either do two things. From an Irish perspective, you either do one of two things. You either develop loads of big, huge props coming through the schools, coming through the clubs, the pathways, whatever it is, and then make them technical, yes, or then you compete. You're fighting fire with fire, or you say, right, well, actually, if they're going to have 145 kilos lads in their team, there's no way there's as much mobility there, as much ability to kind of get around the park, and you develop your skill set and your pace and your footwork and your ability to offload, and you play expansive rugby and you run them ragged. That's way easier said than done, because you do need to, there's an element of that you need to confront. But if you can get some parity, I think that's the way the game always goes. It's like a marketplace. Once something happens, there has to be a weakness to that. If they, like whenever they went 7-1 split on the bench, there has to be a weakness there. But if they do that, then I think if you fight fire with fire, you might be second best. But this is where kind of the innovation and the game evolves to.
Yeah, and let's not forget with the scrum, South Africa got scrums because of Ireland's mistakes, knock-ons, indiscipline. If you can play the game smartly and you say turn them, and it'll be the same against France. If you can play smartly, turn them, put the pressure on them. Like France aren't going to want to scrum the life out of your own 22. They want to get the ball in and get it away. So I think that there's so many things that when you look at that in November, everyone focused on scrum. There's so many things Ireland can do better to sort of take that scrum out of it. I agree with you. You got to look, and that's where Faz will be brilliant. He looked to go, actually, what team do I pick to exploit the weaknesses that France have and to really supercharge our strengths?
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about the scrum there, and it's going to be a big issue, and you said if we can get parity in it, but what from being in the group recently, what Faz wants is this open style, this beautiful style of rugby that can be played. And once, if you get the parity in the scrum and we're sure-footed there, or you say like the first few go okay and we hold our ground and then the rest of the game becomes easy, then that's when the beautiful, like you call it, the beautiful Irish game of late, like the way Ireland play over the last 5-6 years is really attractive to look at. And then you look at France, the way their DNA and the players they have, what kind of spectacle that the two teams can put on is nailed up for an unbelievable game. So I think, like you said, people get obsessed with one area of the game, but like the rest of, like you said in November, like a lot of them, the scrums came from Irish mistakes, and that fed into the scrum fest, and people yawning at games, and it being so long, so that there is the DNA. We're talking about Irish rugby here, but like Scotland playing unbelievable brand of rugby, the clubs like Ulster playing a class brand of rugby, Bath they're playing a really attractive style as well. So just because there's a lot of focus on scrums and set piece doesn't mean the rest of the game has disappeared. It's still there. It still can be a really attractive game to watch.
Yeah, I think the defence for Ireland is like that's going to be the one that's going to be tested more than their scrum on Thursday night. Like you look at that Bordeaux team and the way they've been playing the Champions Cup, the majority of that back line, I know Penno's out of it, but a lot of those guys are in it, and if Ireland can't defensively get at least parity, if they let this big French pack with their carries get over the line, some of those athletes will cause you're having to defend for at least, well, let's say 50% of the game. You only maybe have 8 scrums in a game. So actually for me, the defence, and then like you say, Conor, what they do when they get the ball back, how good they can be. But I think if they can defend really, really well and bring that physicality there, I think it's a big thing for them as well.
If you defend, and we've all been there, if you defend poorly in France, the feeling of it, like that French flair they talk about, and their tails are up and they're offloading and the crowd really get into it, and then there's been moments in your career. Twickenham is one of my least favourite places to play, but Stade de France, when their tails are up, the crowd are, you get a little bit nervous, you get a little bit nervy, don't you? And it looks like, it feels like a higher mountain to climb once they get that going. So
And
they're literally not playing. They're not even paying attention until something happens in the game.
Yeah.
And they're all the corporates. They're all in their box and they're just like chatting amongst themselves. Because we were over doing the hospitality at the World Cup in 23. And the cheese, like genuinely, it sounds like a piss take, but the cheese board they bring out at halftime is outrageous. I was in a box with Matthew Bastero, and he was front of the queue for that cheese board every time. Like there was barely any left by the time we got up to it. But that I kind of get the impression there's the French, like you mentioned a couple of times, kind of teetered around. They're so unique in everything they do, and rugby is just their thing. And they do it in their own way. I don't think they're paying attention half the time until something happens and they all just start partying. And it's what makes it such a unique place to play rugby.
Yeah, but it is about their momentum, isn't it? And you actually played in teams that never really got walloped there. Like in our first couple of years there, we were 40-0 down after 30 minutes, and you're kind of going... It was great for us because we were in the bench. You knew you were definitely coming on. You hoped you got on before it got to 80, but you never know. And they generally finished like 50-something, 30-something, because once they got to 40 points, they went, oh, this is it, over. We'll get a cigarette out here and off we go. But it used to be, now those teams and that, when we've been playing them, it would have been 2006. Those 2006, 7, 8, those were like unbelievable French teams. This is more like it now, this, because they went on a bit of a lull, which was good for us in that sort of era when we won a couple of things. But they were, in those early days, were outrageous.
Yeah, it was so devastating. And once they get dominance up front, you got Cedric Hymans, Vincent Clark, Poitrenaud, Jojian. And it's a disaster, absolute disaster. If they get front foot ball, I mean, it's just all you can do is just assume you're going to get beaten and just join the party with the French supporters.
Admire it.
They genuinely believe they can do anything. Like they're firing these passes. Like Hymans is firing this 30-meter pass, and you're going, I've never seen him pass the ball before in my life. And now he's hit this perfect spiral pass, 30 meters, right to whoever, Poitrenaud running onto it, and they're drifting along. When they get their tails up, they are, now that we're retired, a joy to watch. Wasn't so joyful when you're in the middle of it.
Well, let's talk selection, and it is Wednesday before the game, for those listening on delay. So the news today, Bundy out, Hugo Keenan out, so Bundy for disciplinary reasons, far from ideal. Thoughts on that, Andrew?
I don't think he would have started. I think Stuart McCluskey would start. But Farrell's a big fan of having a big, bulky 23 coming off the bench, and Bundy, he has that aura about him. We've seen it a number of times, one or two times in particular, covered in the advertisement. It was Wales, wasn't it? Yeah. Blood on one side, like William Wallace, different colours.
He was loving it.
And he is rousing. I don't think his performances have been as good as we've seen in the past. He's dropped off a bit, but I can see why Farrell would maybe go for him at 23. I don't think he would start though.
Keenan's a big loss though.
He is, I think he's one of the ones that when he's fit and available, Andy Farrell loves having him. Like you know him better than we would as a player, but he definitely, the way he controls the backfield, which is going to be so important, the way he attacks, the sort of deceptive speed that he has, and he seems to me as being an incredibly intelligent rugby player that pulls that back three together. Because, let's be honest, there's a lot of stupid wingers around, so you need a really smart fullback to keep them in line.
Yeah.
He's talking about Tommy.
I was talking about Tommy.
He did look at you.
No, he's talking about Tommy.
Well,
yeah, I was talking about Tommy.
Hugo, he demonstrated in the Lions, I suppose. Remember he got sick in that first week.
Yeah,
and
he lost.
All the chat was he lost like 50% of his body weight or something.
50%,
15 kilos down.
And then still managed to get himself. He's obviously real professional.
Yeah.
No midweek drinking at all for this lad.
You'd be surprised.
Maybe. Really?
Yeah.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah. So.
No, he is. He's like, he comes from sevens. He's incredibly fit, like unbelievable athlete. But you said about the backfield and, potentially new combinations if Jacob comes in there or Jamie Osborne comes in. Hugo literally runs the week. like he'll be in front of the TV, giving presentations about the backfield and, analysing the French and literally laying out the plan of how they're going to manage, kick space and behind or whatever. So that, like I've seen it in recent years, like that'll be a huge loss during the week. I can't think of someone who can step into, like, he's half coach, half player, and obviously everyone sees the way he plays. He's an incredible player, but the way he leads the week, he takes an awful lot of weight off. Maybe Simon needs to be shoulder in terms of that's part of your defensive role with the backfield stuff. So Hugo is a massive lot. Obviously Bundy will probably be out for God knows how long. But
what did he say? Do you know?
I don't know. I can't. What? What?
What do you mean?
He said, "I don't know. I can't say."
Which is
I do know, I can't.
I do know, and I cannot say. Bundy gets riled up,
Gavin,
doesn't
this
he?
is
Yeah,
your-
yeah. Gavin, is it your
in
turn to talk?
I'm just going to let it breathe for a minute. Okay, let's pick the back three then. If we've got no Hugo Keenan,
If there's no Hugo, then it's Jacob Stockdale for me. It's Tommy O'Brien's going to be fit, isn't he? By the sounds of it.
Looks it, yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
obviously a worry calf over in Bayonne. If he comes through, Tommy O'Brien, I think, is someone.
So good.
Yeah, it's more than what he does. It's the energy that must just inject in your entire team, your entire backline, certainly, and just his ability just to go from 0 to 100 like that. It's incredible. His commitment. But it's not just he's physical, athletic. It's all those things, but he's also really skillful as well.
Some of his tries he scored this year, wasn't there one for Leinster chipped over the top for himself and scored? I don't know who it was against, but like he does have that X factor along with what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that he covers, like he's an Andy Farrell type. Like everything he'll give 100% in. And
when we're saying there's a lot of guys, enough guys to be concerned about their individual form that might follow through. He's one guy who's playing out of his skin. And he's in perfect form running into Six Nations. So him on the right. And I agree, James Lowe, based on his form, I think there are definitely wingers, a lot of wingers in Ireland that are playing better. But I think he could be one where he has a big performance, and that could be one where Farrell does what Schmidt did to Carney in Soldier Field. Just something just gentle. I need a big one out of you today. Carney played the best game of his life. I think Farrell just knows how to get that response, to your point.
Because what he has credit in the bank, and you don't want players picked who are playing poorly, but what Lowy has done for a number of years, especially the way Ireland play. I know Jacob has a left foot too. If he is 15, that brings more options in. But what he does for the whole game plan is very important to the way Ireland want to play. So Andy he'll be zoning in on Lowy this week and just making sure he's revved up. I think left wing, I'd be similar back three.
Yeah, look, I think he'll pick Jamie Osborne at fullback. I think if you look at, assuming he's fit and ready to go, if you look at him, brought him out to the Lions, he was quoted whenever it was about how many times he'd seen him training at fullback. I think he's invested a lot of time in him as being that second fullback. I think he'll put him there. I think he will go with Lowe on the left wing, and he'll go with Tommy O'Brien on the right, is what I would think. For me, it is that balance between, do you go with a person with some money in the bank and James Lowe, or do you go with the player that's playing better and Jacob? I think he'll probably go with James Lowe. I obviously would go with Jacob. I think the one we haven't talked about is Robert Balakoon. I think Ireland are crying out for somebody with X factor. England have it, Scotland have it in a different way. And I think that Ireland need to find out where... And look, I agree, I think Tommy O'Brien's a great player, but what does he do absolutely exceptional? Like, for me, he does everything very, very, very well. But does he have, the way defences are, does he have an X factor to break something down? Is he like Van der Merwe? Is he big? No. Is like Feu Bosa? Does he have the ability to beat somebody in a sixpence and gas them? Not to the level of that. Now, I'm not saying that he's not very, very good. I think Balakoon is the only back three player that we have that has out-and-out X factor to do something that no one else can do. He just needs to keep playing.
He's just been
yeah.
We've all seen it in camp how electric he can be, but he just keeps getting knocked down with injuries, doesn't he? We spoke to Jacob recently about Rob, and he reckons he could have been a Lion at this stage if he had a solid run of form, because again, we've all been exposed to seeing him in camp, and he is ridiculous. Like in training, you see some outrageous stuff that you probably don't see in test matches when it gets really tough, but he has that player profile, I suppose, that can.
And that's the roll of the dice. And look, Tommy O'Brien is definitely the form winger of them all, because the amount he's played, and like you talked about those bits and pieces. I just think if you're looking ahead and you're going, who can do something different? For me, you got to see, can he do it, or is it just all hype? Well, it's not all hype, but can he consistently deliver it?
He got a nod, didn't he, against South Africa a couple of
he's
years
had
ago
a
in
few
November,
big game,
and it felt like this was his chance. And he's 28 now, isn't he? I heard there, because it kind of surprised me. I still have him as in a category of developing, biding his time, waiting for his opportunity. He's 28.
That's what injuries can do, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it can just make you seem like you haven't been around that long.
Yeah, and it just, I kind of sort of thought, the fact that he's at that, he should be coming into prime Balakoon. And there, I think we all know, we've all seen glimpses of, or moments of, or long periods of it, but he's been interrupted by injury. I think even his comeback recently he looks like he's got those moments, and you see it, glimpses of it, and then he just looks a little bit tentative. So he's someone who's kind of haunted by injury as well. Kind of feels like a little bit, but it would be brilliant to see him. What he has different, it's pace, it's pure pace. In terms of that X factor, I think someone like Mac Hansen probably has that. Like, it's harder to describe, it's harder to exactly kind of put it in a box, but he's got something very special about him.
Yeah.
The two of them are unique in their own different ways, aren't they?
Yeah. I think it's his ability to link, isn't it, Mac Hansen?
Mac is the first receiver type as well. Yeah,
and just appears everywhere,
Yeah.
and he just is such a playmaker. So he allows other people around him to play so much better. So I'd agree with you with Mac Hansen is definitely an X factor, but it's unfortunately in World Rugby now, you've got to at least have one of them on the pitch, I think, minimum. But
Happy all that McCluskey starts?
Yeah. I think he's been around for so long in camp that he would make fun of himself in camp about holding tackle pads and just being there for that reason. But
then he goes to his room and cries.
Yeah, behind the doors, I've heard. But he's really admirable that he's stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like, some people come into camp and they're not involved for years, and they just go through the motions, and they go back to their club and they play really well, and they know they won't knock the door down. But he's just stuck with it, and especially for Ulster, the way he plays, like, he's a big part of the way Ulster play over the last number of years. So to see Andy trust him, and and for Stu to repay him in the big games he's played lately, I think he's definitely a shoe in there.
The people of Armagh are hanging in there. Time is nearly beating us. Any other points you'd like to make with the pack before we go to predictions, Rory? Anybody you want to see in there?
You don't see your Dogbo getting in there?
Would he bench even?
Maybe on the bench, yeah. I think he'll go with what he knows. I think he'll go with James Ryan, Joe McCarthy, and he'll put Tagburn at 6. He'll want the line out is so important, especially in France, especially away from home anyway, but in France. And that then with Doris gives you 4 good jumpers, gives you 3 excellent jumpers, and Doris is pretty good. And I think it gives you a little bit more. I think that the worry is to expose the Dogbo to that the pace that this game is going to be played at, assuming the weather plays ball in the first 10 minutes, is going to be like that'll be nothing that he's ever been exposed to. And you talk about the big jump up in training when you get to Ireland, but then there's a huge jump up in the game. You think when you get used to training, you think, yeah, okay, this isn't too bad, and then you get to the game and it's like, this is horrific. And then you get to an away match and it's even more, because every single mistake is capitalised on. Look, I think at some stage we're going to see the likes of him. Is a pity for Thomas Ahern, because I think those are two that he's going to want. He needs to look at where the options are. But to throw him straight in to start, I think it'd be a big ask. Yeah, it is a tough place.
Yeah. Someone in the Stade de France.
And you got to balance. Are you actually bringing him? Are you bringing them through? And Andy talks about how do you get them in a position to show the best version of themselves, and I'm not sure that that's it. I think a home game against any of the home matches as Six Nations would be the best place for him to show what he can do. I think that'd be very harsh, and to then the risk that somebody with that talent, they have a bad game in the Stade de France and it affects them. Like some players never recover from those sorts of things. Now, it could be the best thing that ever happened to you, but for me, it's too big a gamble.
Great, let's go to finish. Prediction for the first game? Prediction overall? And from an Irish perspective, maybe the standout player for the tournament. Off you go, Conor, first.
I think France will be a little bit too tough for the first game. I think we might, and I hate saying it because I'm recently out of the dressing room, but I do think it'll be a little bit too far to go. I do, however, think that they will put in a performance and we'll see some sort of shape to what Ireland are trying to do, and hopefully a few of the new guys come in and hold their head high after a game like that. So just slip up against France. And what was your other one?
Winners overall, or where Ireland will finish even?
I think Ireland, I think they'll come second. I think we'll beat England away, and then I think France will win it.
Standout player. Good short-term memory, hasn't he?
Standout player for Ireland.
Mm-hmm. And overall, if you feel like it.
Dan Sheehan both. I think he's
okay.
I think he's sorry, Roy, but he is a good player.
Different generation, though. Different generation.
He still gets mad about it.
He doesn't. He's very, very, very comfortable. He is a very good player.
Go on, Rory. Let's hear you.
I think that Ireland are going to narrowly win on Thursday night by a point. Unlike Conor, I am a big Irish supporter and I want them to win.
You said something different downstairs, but we won't go into that.
It's all right. We're now live, so this is what actually matters.
Classic Rory.
I think that Ireland, I think they'll end up third, and I think that England are going to win it very, very tight with France. First, they'll be first, France second, Ireland third. And the standout player, Stuart McCluskey.
Nice. Playing to the crowd.
Yeah.
Go on, Trimble.
Why? What do you mean? Do you not think he's a good player?
I think he's absolutely fantastic. But no one cares what I think. Trimble.
I too, I'm very patriotic like Rory and unlike Conor. And I too
We had a plan downstairs and they're both going against me.
And I too like to see, the glasses half full and celebrate all the good parts of Irish rugby.
Well, you didn't at the start of this, to be honest.
Was that not the sound check? Did we record that?
That was live.
Oh, yeah.
Flip-flopping.
Yeah. I'm going to go, and this is more hope than expectation, I'm going to go Ireland by a couple of points. I hope that all of the talent and all the X factor and all the ability that they have, it is just form, and Farrell taps into something. And we don't have what happened in November was they were shy of game. They had at game time, they had that hangover from the Lions. Now they're well kind of battle hard in Leinster anyway, certainly. So yeah, I'm going to go Ireland by a couple of points. I'm going to go Ireland are going to win a Grand Slam this year. I thought we were celebrating all the naivety. Ireland are going to win a Grand Slam, and Jacob Stockdale is going to be the player of the tournament.
You do know it's 2026, not 2018, yeah?
He's bided his time. And
he's due.
That's one of your boys.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I was making sure Trimby knew. No, I have no issue.
General manager there.
He's very good, but I'm just making sure Trimby knows what year it is.
Yeah.
He's a bit stupid.
Jacob went away and said, "I'll see you in 8 years, and I'll be back with a bang." I'm going to go quiet for 8 years.
We can't finish on a dig.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
Can we?
It was kind of a compliment, was it?
Yeah, it was. We all know that year, everything Jacob touched turned to gold. And he, like you were saying earlier on about Stuart McCluskey, he's been patient. Jacob just has had such an unusual career path. Yeah. No one else has kind of had to cope with that. Granted, it was incredible that year, but then the expectations are through the year or through the roof, and the second season syndrome. He's had second season, third season. He's had that expectation kind of hanging on him a little bit, and I just feel like he's one who's bided his time, and he still has that ability to spark something. He still is the talisman for Ulster. A lot of youngsters, a lot of ability out there. When they get go forward, he just breaks tackles, looks for offloads, and hopefully we'll see vintage Jacob Stockdale in Paris next Thursday.
That's a nice way to finish it.
Hopefully we see him picked, otherwise we can't use this.
It's a good point, well made. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Ireland Rugby Social. Thank you for your time. Thank you to Andrew Trimble, Rory Best, Conor Murray, and enjoy the Six Nations. Give yourselves a round of applause.